It began with a question, just one question, that changed how millions saw Kody Brown forever. A question that wasn't written in any script, and a silence that said more than words ever could. Behind that silence lies a legacy, a tangled web of belief, control, and a family raised inside a system most of America has never truly understood. Was Kody's, off-script, confrontation with Brody just a protective father's moment, or the final crack in a faith pyramid built decades ago?
I just had to draw some really hard boundaries.
When Kody
when we
Brown,
get on this video,
Meri Brown, Janelle Brown, Christine Brown and later Robyn Brown opened the doors of their home to the cameras on Sister Wives, in 2010, audiences were introduced to a polygamist family living in Utah then Nevada, a lifestyle few understood. What didn't appear on screen was the religious blueprint behind their lives. The faith tradition of the Apostolic United Brethren, AUB, one of the fundamentalist Mormon-related groups, which the Browns were once affiliated with. In the AUB's worldview, plural marriage wasn't just a marital choice, it was a spiritual mandate, a path to exaltation. The family's public narrative, a lifestyle experiment. But the internal narrative, a layered belief system, a pyramid of authority, and a set of expectations few outside could see. Inside the early years of the show, the Browns moved from Utah to Las Vegas in 2011, then to Arizona in 2018. These moves were not just about changing scenery, they reflected a journey through faith, media exposure, self-identity and public scrutiny. But as they moved forward on TV, something else in their background started humming beneath the surface, one that the cameras rarely captured. Let's consider the structure. The AUB is organized like a pyramid, prophet elders at the top, local leaders below, families beneath them. In that structure, rules are given, obedience is rewarded, questioning is discouraged. Yet on the show we rarely saw prayers in meeting halls, we seldom heard sermons about obedience and spiritual hierarchy. Instead, we saw family dinner, sibling rivalry, wife-wife tensions. The spiritual core, largely omitted. Critics argue this omission left viewers with a distorted image. The family looked like a quirky reality show experiment rather than the outcome of deeply held beliefs. Many fans asked, why did the show gloss over the spiritual component? Why did the narrative leave out how much faith shaped decisions, from who marries whom, to how the family moves geographically, to how they handle internal conflict? Behind the scenes, that faith network also influenced how the Browns responded to criticism, how they framed their public image, how the wives positioned themselves. In essence, media exposed family plus faith legacy equals a complicated hybrid few were prepared for. And then, cracks began to show. What happens when belief meets reality? As seasons progressed, friction grew, between Kody and his wives, between the public's expectations and the private spiritual legacy they carried, between what the cameras showed and what remained hidden. For example, some wives felt sidelined, some children felt uncertain about their roles, faith decisions crept into everyday life in ways that viewers couldn't always see. The public saw arguments about budget, house moves, and polygamy logistics, but fewer saw the spiritual stress, feelings of unworthiness, pressure to conform to religious ideals, the fear of falling short in the hierarchy. The show's narrative, we're just a plural family trying to make it. The underlying narrative, we're followers of a faith system that demands more. Fan commentary began pointing out that while the family claimed to have left or loosened ties with the AUB, the patterns remained, decisions made with priesthood approval, relational dynamics echoing the faith's power structure. The tension peaked when the public began to question, was this show truly about independence and choice, or was it still deeply rooted in a belief framework that held unspoken authority? And then came the twist, the part that turned everything upside down. Here's the twist you weren't fully prepared for. The Browns' disengagement from the AUB was not simply a clean break, it was more a subtle shift. Although they publicly distanced themselves, the undercurrents of their faith system remained. In interviews and fan forums, some insiders claim that children were still taught beliefs aligned with AUB doctrine, that decisions of wives and husband were still influenced by the priesthood chain, that the image of freedom on screen masked the legacy of control. What the show did not adequately highlight, how the historicism of the faith, the idea of lineage, the idea of spiritual progression, the idea of obedience, remained woven into everyday life. Christine's deep family roots in polygamist history, her lines go back generations, reinforced that legacy. So the twist: this isn't just a story about polygamy and a reality TV family. It's also a story about belief systems, legacy systems, and how they persist even when cameras aren't looking. The Browns weren't simply leaving a faith, they were evolving inside it, publicly and privately. For many viewers and commentators, that raises the question: did the show tell the full truth? Or did it omit the spiritual scaffolding that shaped the family's choices from the inside out? And the reaction? It was swift, emotional, and controversial. Once the narrative began to shift, fans and critics responded. Some longtime viewers felt betrayed. They believed they were watching open-minded plural family life, only to discover a more complex faith narrative hidden beneath. Others felt sympathy. Yes, they were genuine in their affections and struggles, but the spiritual weight they carried was heavier than we were shown. Discussion boards lit up with comments. I know I'll get downvotes, but at this point it just seems like every devout religion only exists to cover up the abuse of children and women. Others pointed out the difference between the show's brand, polygamy made palatable, and the historical reality of Mormon fundamentalist systems, where hierarchy and obedience are central. From the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, FLDS, to the AUB, critics say polygamy cannot be separated from the belief architecture that supports it. Some wives of the show began to speak more openly about spiritual strain. Reporters began asking deeper questions about the Browns' faith roots, and how those roots shaped their public conflicts. The show's producers faced pressure. Is this entertainment or an incomplete faith story? And importantly, women in the USA watching this felt two messages. One of empowerment: look, plural wives can still raise kids, hold jobs, appear strong. And one of caution: what happens when belief systems control your choices behind the scenes? The backlash wasn't just about reality TV drama. It was about authenticity, agency, and spiritual transparency. So where does that leave the story today? The Browns continue on television. The wives have separated. The children have grown up. The show evolves. But the underlying question remains: how much of our beliefs shape us invisibly? How much of our freedom is real? For viewers, especially women in the USA, this story offers more than just entertainment. It offers an invitation to reflect. What are the hidden belief systems in your life? When you see a public persona on-screen or off-screen, what are the unseen forces pushing behind it? How much agency do you truly have when systems of faith, tradition and hierarchy are involved? If you found this story compelling, subscribe for deeper dives into families, faith and hidden structures. Leave a comment. What surprised you most in this story? Part 2. The moment unfolded during a quiet afternoon scene. Kody sat across from Brody, a young man growing close to Aurora, Robyn's daughter. The cameras were rolling, but this didn't feel like a scripted segment. Kody began to ask, "So how do you plan to protect Aurora?" What should have been a light-hearted talk turned sharp. His tone shifted. His eyes, calculating. Brody, clearly uncomfortable, stumbled over his words. The air grew heavy. Fans watching at home described it as the most painfully real silence ever caught on the show. It wasn't just about a question, it was about power. Was Kody testing Brody, or testing the boundaries of his own authority? To understand this moment, you have to look at the man behind it. Kody Brown isn't just a reality TV dad, he's a man defined by control. In previous episodes, Kody often spoke about protecting his wives, his children, his household. But critics argue it wasn't always protection, sometimes it was possession. Over the years, his authority was challenged. Christine walked away, Janelle distanced herself, Meri grew silent. So when Brody entered the picture, an outsider growing close to Aurora, that old instinct kicked in. The protector becomes the interrogator. But what if this wasn't about Brody at all? What if it was about Kody losing control of his last remaining family unit? As soon as the episode aired, the internet exploded. Reddit threads lit up. Did Kody just improvise this? He looked genuinely angry. Some fans swore the scene felt raw, unscripted, unplanned. Others suspected TLC knew exactly what they were doing, letting Kody off leash for ratings. A former producer unnamed in fan circles once hinted that Kody often pushed limits during filming, sometimes going off script to provoke real reactions. So, was this Kody breaking the fourth wall, or the network orchestrating emotional chaos for views? Either way, it worked. Within 24 hours, clips went viral, hashtags trended, and the narrative shifted. Kody versus Brody, real or rehearsed? But the real shock came days later, when someone close to the family spoke out. Here's the twist: the scene wasn't just uncomfortable, it was revealing. An insider later claimed that Kody had been feeling protective to the point of paranoia about Aurora after recent family shifts. With several of his wives gone and his authority diminished, Kody's identity as patriarch was unraveling. So, when Brody entered the scene, representing independence and change, Kody reacted from a place of fear, not control. This wasn't rebellion against producers. This was a man trying to reclaim a sense of leadership in a collapsing family structure. That's the deeper truth beneath the off-script narrative. It wasn't a performance, it was exposure. And that emotional exposure, the rawness, became too real for fans to handle. The internet did what it always does, dissected every second. Some fans empathized with Kody, calling him a father trying to protect. Others saw manipulation, a man unable to separate fatherhood from control. Female viewers in particular responded with emotional reflection. This is what happens when men can't handle losing power. That wasn't love, that was ego disguised as concern. Meanwhile, Brody's awkward silence became the moment's symbol. a mirror of every uncomfortable confrontation where boundaries blur. The producers, silent. The family, divided. And Kody, neither confirmed nor denied going off script. But the message was clear. This wasn't just a reality TV argument. It was a real-life power struggle caught in 4K. So what do we learn when reality TV accidentally captures reality? In the end, we may never know whether that moment was scripted, semi-staged, or completely real. But one thing is undeniable. It revealed the raw humanity inside a man the world loves to judge, and the quiet discomfort of a young man caught between affection and expectation. For women across America, it sparked deeper conversations about emotional boundaries, parental control, and when protection crosses into dominance. A mirror of how power behaves when it feels cornered, and how truth slips out when cameras are rolling. If this story made you think twice about what's real on Sister Wives, hit subscribe. Drop a comment. Do you think Kody went off script? Let's deep dive in full details. Part 3. To understand that single moment, Kody's piercing look, Brody's discomfort, Aurora's frozen expression, we have to go back. The Browns emerged from the AUB, a breakaway sect rooted in fundamentalist Mormonism, not the LDS Church, but a quieter, tighter, secretive network built on hierarchy, priesthood lines, and eternal marriage. For years, the family kept that tie invisible on screen. TLC's cameras captured laughter, moving trucks, and family dinners, but not the sermons, not the patriarchal oaths, not the pyramid of obedience that shaped their choices. So when Kody asked Brody how he planned to protect Aurora, fans saw awkwardness. But for those who know the AUB, it sounded like something else entirely. The scene unfolded like any family talk. But within seconds, tone shifted. Kody leaned forward. Brody hesitated. Aurora went silent. The question, how do you plan to protect her, hung in the air. Fans immediately noticed Kody's posture. Not playful, not rehearsed, defensive. Territorial. What followed was 28 seconds of silence, the kind that producers usually cut. But they didn't. They left it raw. Was that silence a mistake, or a message? This was the most uncomfortable thing I've ever watched on TLC. Reddit user Polygamy Confessions. He looked like he forgot the cameras were there. YouTube comment, 60k likes. That was not acting. That was dominance. Facebook post, 12k shares. It reminded fans of earlier episodes. Kody confronting Christine in season 17, when she questioned his leadership. You don't have to respect me, but I deserve obedience. A line eerily close to the AUB's patriarchal creed. Maybe the cameras didn't capture a family talk. Maybe they caught a doctrine in action. Inside AUB culture, the family isn't a democracy, it's a hierarchy. The man leads. The wives follow. The children obey. Even if the Browns claim to have left the AUB, the structure never left them. Kody's behavior, from micromanaging the wives' homes to lecturing about loyalty, mirrors that system. Brody, in that moment, wasn't just a boyfriend, he was an outsider threatening the inner circle. Utah decriminalized polygamy in 2020, but the Browns' earlier legal struggles began in 2010 when they faced investigation under Utah Code 7670101. Their move to Las Vegas was partly to avoid prosecution. So if the law forced Kody to abandon Utah, maybe faith made him cling harder to control at home. Here's where the story turns. In a rare behind-the-scenes clip later leaked to fan forums, Kody can be heard telling producers, "I don't want that scene edited down. I meant every word. Those 8 words changed the conversation. This wasn't accidental. It wasn't spontaneous. It was intentional. He wanted America to see his authority, not the husband fighting for love, but the patriarch asserting control one last time." And that's when the backlash exploded. This isn't 1850 Utah. This is toxic masculinity. Brody looked terrified. Aurora looked erased. Kody's faith isn't love, it's dominance. Clip reached 2.8 M views in 24 hours. Hashtag Kody unscripted trended for 48 hours on Twitter. But beneath the backlash was something deeper, a question about identity. Was Kody acting out of faith, or fear of irrelevance? As Christine left, as Janelle detached, as Meri grew silent, Kody's last connection to control was Robyn. Aurora and Brody symbolize the future, modern, free, independent. So when Kody confronted Brody, it wasn't just about protection. It was about losing the last symbol of his faith's authority. That's what made the scene so uncomfortable. It was grief disguised as control. I saw my father in that moment. Controlling, but terrified. He's not a villain, he's a man watching his power vanish. But when faith and family collapse, what remains? We began with a question: how will you protect her? But maybe the real question was, who protects whom, when belief becomes control? For over a decade, America watched a family born of faith crumble under modern light. The Brown story isn't just about polygamy. It's about patriarchy, fear, and the slow unraveling of control in a world that's finally watching. The twist is simple. What looked like a man going off script was actually a man revealing the script he'd followed all along. If this documentary opened your eyes, hit subscribe. Comment your take. Was Kody protecting or projecting? Share this video to keep the conversation going. And next time, we'll expose the unseen hand behind the sister wives narrative, the editing choices that shaped what you believed. Because in the world of sister wives, what's hidden in silence often tells the loudest truth.